Well, hip hop, first of all, I have to give it to where hip hop came from. Of course, the Bronx, New York, through the United States in 1973. But I can recount having moved up here to Washington from California, originally in Hilltop and Lakewood and Steilacoom, living in those areas. One of the essential places in the South Sound was Penny Lane Records. I have to make mention because Tacoma is important as we move into Olympia because they share space. So people like Nasty Ness, Penny Lane Records, these are vital names. K-Fox, KTOY, these two radio stations that played hip hop in the 80s. When we moved to here, we're at East Tanglewild Park. And East Tanglewild is instrumental in the capital, Olympia, Lacey area, and the hip hop scene because this is where hip hop was. It's right here in Hawks Prairie, specifically in East Tanglewild. And the reason being is we have in this neighborhood uniquely had people from Atlanta through the military, and I'm not military, but my homeboys were. So we had people from Philadelphia and homegirls, people from Philly, people from Oakland, San Francisco, LA, New York, Virginia, Maryland, DC, Detroit, Chicago. And these guys, we were all familiar with our area. So bringing it here to this neighborhood in East Tanglewild, there was hip hop here in the 80s. So the people came with hip hop and knowledge of it as a culture. So it was something that was not alien to us. This was not something that was new. We didn't get it just through break-in and Beat Street and Wild Style. We came to this area with the knowledge of hip-hop from the hoods and the communities and whatever you would call it that we came from. So culturally it was here through individuals connecting. And it was pretty remarkable because we got along here through athletics and through bonds of friendship. So it was really awesome. It was dope. These are people from so-called notorious hoods and communities from across this country. And we came to East Tanglewild and we're formidable as people, as friends, as a community here. Now, institutionally, Chaos Radio, Chaos 89.3 was an important conduit for hip-hop culture because we were privileged to have DJ Nancy G, a female DJ, renowned, awesome talent on the radio, great voice, great knowledge and mind for hip-hop culture. She was introducing the music to the area in the 80s, mid-80s. So we'd hear Rodney O and Joe Cooley, we'd hear High Performance, we'd hear Sir Mix-a-Lot, but we'd hear Eric B, we'd hear BWP, we'd hear everything NWA on the radio, right here, broadcasting live from the West Side in Olympia. So Chaos 89.3 is an important factor starting in the 80s as far as hip-hop being broadcast as a culture throughout Thurston County, Pierce County, Lewis County, these South Puget Sound areas. Now on the ground, we were all involved with hip-hop, listening to it. The mixtape game was live right here. Most of our music was not purchased, so we would dub tapes. And that's what we call it. You just dub a tape. It'd be a mixtape. My cousins in Harlem, we record WBLS in the mid 80s. Get the tape, and we hear LL Cool J's first appearance on the radio through a tape over the summer of 1985. And that's how we would introduce music and spread it around, in our community. So it wasn't so much hitting up Sam Goody or Camelot and the other stores that are now defunct, but it was, through the people we know and transferring tapes. One of the tapes, I still have these mixtapes since the 80s in my library, but one of my favorite tapes was called The Black Tape, and it was Too Short. All of Too Short's music, as much as I could fit on a 90-minute tape, and some were 60-minute tapes, but this would be circulated. Freaky Tales, Know What I Mean. So this is how hip hop was circulated out here in our community, East Tanglewild, through my big sister and her friends and other people in the community. And this was one of the areas where we had some gang culture as deep as it could get, I guess. in this area. And coming from a gang culture out of the state, you know, it was different, but that was part of hip hop up here too. You know, so we had Crips and Bloods here in the area, and for the most part got along. You know, there wasn't really any reason to have beef, but these were all of the communities or sub-communities that were part of establishing hip-hop here. So, you know, our neighbor next door to us, they were from Hilltop, right here in East Tanglewild, and, you know, one was a DJ, dope DJ. He had one of the dopest, freshest mixtapes with the Skinny Boys on it, Eric B. and Rakim on it. And so we're getting hip-hop culture, you know, installed right in our community, and this is in the late 80s. So I'll transition really quickly because the first music, hip-hop music, that I can recount, you know, came from a group that I belonged to called For Real. And before I get into that, I just want to, you know, give props to Calvin Johnson from K Records. His label was instrumental in industrializing hip-hop here in the community. You know, K Records is a famous record label here in Olympia, downtown Olympia. And, you know, from rock, indie rock to hip-hop, K Records is an important part of the story of hip-hop here in the Olympia, Lacey, South Puget Sound area, and far beyond. But as we start here, when I was in high school, I was about 14, and we had a group called For Real, and it was composed of some of the homeboys from the neighborhood here, Leonard Woolrich, named Scooter Mac. He was from here in the neighborhood, and Linwood Hayes is what he goes by. SP, Slowpoke. His original name was Outcast, and he was living in East Tanglewild too at the time. We were all going to school in the North Thurston School District, North Thurston High School, and we came through Chinook, some of us. And one of our homeboys from Lacey, Cortez Eaton. So there were 4 of us, and we were just, you know, 14 to 16 years old, and we're recording music under the name For Real. And one of the first tracks we recorded was called Just to Survive. Now, we went to Lakewood to record it at this place called the Zoo Studios, and we were just fresh to the game. And so we paid for like 6 hours of studio time at $40 an hour, you know, while we were still in high school. So we went in, and I laid the sample, and you know, we produced a track. It came out, and it was the hottest thing since your mama made dinner. You know what I mean? It was the hottest thing at the high school because we had a product. Nobody had their own tape in 1991. We had our own tape. Okay, 91 and 92, the end of 92. So we were recording, before we formed the group, you know, Linwood Hayes and I would be recording in my mother's front yard with like a tape deck with a double deck, and just play an instrumental, like an MC Breed instrumental, and we'd be rapping over it. And that's how we would rap. So going to the studio was a pretty awesome experience, you know, as a young kid, because we didn't have any coaching. You know, and this is still the problem that affects this whole region, is there's not a lot of mentoring and leadership about how to get into the business side of music. So we also experienced that, and, you know, we bear the consequences of that. We actually all should be vastly savvy in the music industry, having entered at the ages of 14 to 16 and 17 years old. We should all have a career, you know, all 4 of our members of the group. And we do have careers in different ways, but, you know, imagine how we had a manager or a parent or some mentor who knew about how to go from this tape to make it, you know, be a profitable venture with your art. Make money, what's wrong with that? Nothing. But no one was there to guide that. So in the early 90s, you know, we were just happy to have the tape. You know, the fellas liked it and the girls liked it. We were, you know, all these members of the group were already popular, you know, as athletes, as student, you know, just students in the student body, you know. So this tape just magnified that. It was hot. You know, people wanted to battle. We were battling at North Thurston High School, later battle when I went to River Ridge. So hip-hop was alive and well here in the area. Definitely Hawks Prairie. It was part of, you know, if you think of Tanglewild, Thompson Place, the Meadows, East Tanglewild, where we're at right now, it was not a foreign concept. This is where most of the people of color and diversity is, so this is where hip-hop was. And not all people of color were entrenched in hip-hop culture here, but we can tell you this is where hip hop was represented, and not in some way through TV. I mean, we had rappers, beatboxers, b-boys and b-girls, graffiti artists. Maybe the one thing that we didn't have were DJs, because again, that's a very expensive aspect of hip hop. So it was